There you go. Good morning,
Yes.
good evening, and good afternoon, lovely people, depending on where you are watching us from this beautiful world of ours. Today, I am really, really happy to have you here, Linda, because you and I go way back, if I may say so. We have
Yeah.
met actually through my movement, Loving Love After Loss. And
Yeah.
our connection was, may I say, pretty much instant. And I love the path that you and I have walked parallel for some time and then in different directions. And now we've just recently reconnected. I'm going to give a shout out here as well. I invited you to the Backyard Peace Project, which is a wonderful, wonderful movement that is very young and emerging and growing very rapidly with some amazing global ambassadors such as you and myself. I'm saying that from a very humble space because I'm so delighted that we're both part of this. The lovely Kathy Dominy has founded this. So, without further ado, I want to bring the spotlight on you, Linda. Would you do us the honor and introduce yourself, please? Welcome.
Thank you very much. What a lovely introduction. Yes, do go way back and we did instantly connect, which was beautiful. A little bit about myself. So I've been
Yeah.
a coach for over a decade now. Um,
Mm.
my journey into becoming a coach was sort of part of personal discovery, which I think is a lot very common amongst a lot of coaches. And prior to that, I had a career at Australia Post for 16
Yeah.
years.
Wow.
Into and moved my way from a postie all the way up to a senior manager. And when I left, I was like, what is it that I enjoyed doing? And it
Mm.
was elevating people, empowering people,
Mm.
giving them the opportunity to really shine. So here I
Yeah.
am. I've been doing this for 10 years. I work with individuals, I work with small businesses, I work with NDIS clients.
Hmm.
They say you've got to have a niche. Ah, I know.
Yeah.
I like to zag while everyone else is zigging, if you like.
Your
So
niche is brightening up people's lives. So that
my
I really love
niche,
that.
yes, is elevating. Whoever needs to be
Elevating,
elevated.
exactly.
Here I
And you
am.
shine
Yeah.
so brightly. I love what you do and who you are, and you know that. I was very honored that you shared your story with me last night, and we were both like, let's bring this to our audience. I really, the title already gives it away, the sacred gift of saying goodbye, and you certainly have that. But before we go to that moment, can you share a little bit about your life circumstances, about your connection with your mom? Like, there's so much beauty in all of this, and I'll let you share whatever you're open to sharing here.
Oh, yeah. So my mum, who was she was an angel, you know,
Mm.
walking on this earth. She really was. She was loved by everybody. Um, a very healthy woman, ate organically, cooked everything, wasn't a smoker, wasn't a drinker, but she got breast cancer.
Mm.
There was only 17 years between my mum and I. So she was a young
Wow.
mum.
Yeah.
And we had often joked about we'd probably end up in the same retirement village together because it was such because there's such a
Oh.
short gap um,
Yeah.
between us. And so I think, she grew into the woman that she became and the mother that she became. And we were kind of learning at the same time.
Mm.
Um, and then when she was in her 50s, she was diagnosed with breast cancer, very aggressive breast cancer. And actually,
Wow.
there's a little story I want to tell you about that
Hmm.
because I think
Sure.
it's important to your viewers, and it might bring some hope to some people that are out there.
Yeah.
Mum's cancer was so aggressive that she was part of a trial group, a case
Mm.
study, where they were giving an aggressive chemo treatment with
Mm.
um, chemo and radiotherapy. It was super aggressive. There were 30 women in the group.
Yeah.
Mum was the only one that survived
Oh,
the
wow.
treatment. And one of the things that we were doing, when Mum was first diagnosed and she was like, "What do I do? Do I go down this
Mm.
path of
Yeah.
aggressive treatment, or do I look at alternatives
Mm.
or traditional medicine?" I said, "Well, why not
Yeah.
do both?
Mm.
You know, why not do both? Because the chemotherapy and the radiotherapy is like, in my mind, this is how I explained it to Mum,
Mm.
is like you're a country that's been invaded by an enemy,
Mm,
And, the United Nations come in and start fighting with the enemy. Well, that's chemo and radiotherapy, right?
mm.
But then Medicines Without Frontier and the Red Cross come in and they start rebuilding the infrastructure.
I
And
love
that's
this
what
so
a lot
much.
of, yeah, and that's what the, traditional medicine does for you.
Yeah,
I said, so we
that's
could do both.
beautiful. Yeah.
I've got goosebumps because I remember
Yeah,
having
I've
the
never heard
conversation
it
with my mum.
explained that way, and I really love how you put that
Yeah.
into a story
And,
for her. I love it.
but I said to mum, I said, my greatest belief is that you have to believe in what is happening for you. Like you have to
Mm,
believe in the treatment. If you don't believe in the treatment, if you're sitting in fear all the time, then I believe the treatment doesn't work as effectively because we
yeah.
know there's so much evidence. We have this,
Mm,
what do they call it? I've forgotten the I've forgotten the terminology, but spontaneous remission, it's called,
hmm. Yeah.
right? And there are millions of people around the world that have these spontaneous remission from everything from diabetes to
Hmm.
cancer. And science can't really explain it except for the fact that each person has a certain mindset. So I
Hmm.
said to mum, let's look at all of our options and
Yeah.
then you pick the option that suits you, that feels
Hmm.
good, that connects with you. So we went both routes. So she cut out sugar,
Hmm.
she upped her vitamin D, and she had 10 years of being cancer
Wow.
free. So she was in remission,
Hmm.
which was awesome because in those 10 years, she welcomed 4 new grandchildren into the
I love
world.
it.
So she
Hmm.
got to see them. And she
Hmm.
went to France, had a nice holiday, let her guard down, ate
Nice.
differently,
Hmm.
and secondary cancer came back.
Hmm.
And she started having pains in her legs. And when she came back, we went straight back to the doctor. And that's the other message I think I want to share with people is that when she went to the doctor the first time, even with the first cancer, they just said to her, "Oh, it's just part of aging. You're probably going through menopause." And she knew there was something wrong, so she had to go back and say, "No,
Hmm.
I want more tests." The
Yeah.
second time around, the first diagnosis, well, it's just arthritis. And
Mm.
she said, no, there's something else. So she really had to advocate for herself.
Yeah.
And I think, part of the message is doctors are human beings.
Mm.
They get caught up in the routine and consistency of things.
Yeah. I think
And
that's very
it's,
important what you just said, that routine and consistency, and that they're humans, because a friend of ours unfortunately died from cancer really, really young, bowel cancer, 42 years old. Not
mm,
even, we did her celebration of life on her 42nd birthday, and she had a very similar experience. There's something wrong with me, and the doctors were like, no, it's fine. You just, I don't know, it's just a tummy bug, whatever. And they kept sending her back, and she kept coming back saying, there's something wrong with me, and nobody was listening to her. By the time she was diagnosed, it was terminal. It was really so.
yeah,
Anyway, I didn't want to distract, but I just wanted to highlight that point, that when you feel that there's something wrong, keep advocating for yourself. I really
yeah,
love that you said that, and I just want to really hit that message home for anyone feeling that
yeah,
right now. Mm,
yeah. So they did more scans and they found that mum had secondary cancer. So she had lesions on her
mm,
lungs, her brain, um, in her bones, around her hips mostly.
yeah,
So the diagnosis was 3 months. With
mm,
treatment, maybe 6 months. And mum was
hmm,
adamant she was not going to do chemotherapy because while she
yeah.
was doing chemotherapy the first round, she wasn't allowed to hug her grandchildren. Like
Oh,
there was so many things of the
yeah,
quality of life she wasn't able to do. So she
yeah,
said, no chemo, no treatment. And again, I had another conversation with mum. I sort of wanted to know about the cancer that was in the hips
mm,
because the oncologist was saying that it's made her hips really brittle
yeah,
and she could get a fracture. And I said, well, she gets a fracture, what happens? And it
yeah,
could perforate her spleen, it could perforate some vital organs.
yeah,
So I said to mum, look, this you got to make an educated decision here. Um, I think, if you got 4 months, let's have 4 months of quality where you can do things.
mm,
The last time with the radiotherapy, we used some traditional remedies afterwards. Like
Mm.
instead of using sorbeline, we used yogurt and
Yeah.
cucumber to soften
Mm.
the skin and take the heat out.
Mm.
And it was,
Mm.
it was manageable. I said, so we could do that, and then you could spend the 4 months that you were here enjoying yourself, doing
Yeah.
something. And it was very important for mum that she did not want to die in a hospital. And I get that.
Mm. Yeah.
Anyone who goes in a hospital, I get it.
Yeah.
So we made sure that she was going to be at home, and we were going to
Hmm.
look after her at home.
Yeah.
And we got the
Beautiful.
palliative care nurses to come in. They come in on
Yeah.
a daily basis.
Hmm.
Um, and mum went back to no eating sugar,
Mm.
and she lived for 4.5 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Oh,
with
wow.
with cancer, but
Yeah.
there were some quality years.
Mm.
First 3 years were quality years. Like we really got
Mm.
to spend some quality. She got to have some quality life, and then
Amazing.
towards the fourth year, that's when we could see that we knew we were on borrowed time, and I think that's really important.
Yeah.
Like we could see that mum was on borrowed time.
Hmm.
The reality is we're all on borrowed time.
Yeah.
Tomorrow's
Yeah.
not promised.
Guaranteed.
We're
Yeah.
right. So
Mm.
I think I said to you, I felt very honored that I was in a position where I could actually make sure that I did everything that I wanted to say everything
Mm.
that I wanted to say, do everything that I wanted to do,
Yeah.
and leave nothing said or undone. That
Mm.
when mum was ready to transition, that everything was done that needed to be done. So
Yeah.
that connection, the real conversations.
Mm.
And I remember my sister, she was absolutely devastated. We all were.
Mm.
She kept crying. Every time she'd come to mum and dad, she'd be in tears.
Yeah.
And I sat with her and I said, look, I'm sad too, but I can choose to sit in my sadness
Yeah.
and potentially waste a day, lose a
Mm.
day of creating beautiful memories and having lovely connection moments.
Mm.
Um, so I said, you can save your tears until mum is actually gone.
Yeah.
And right now, step into the light, step into, laughter. Like, oh my gosh, my mum was so naughty. Like, she was
Mm.
petite. She was really petite. She was really pretty. She was very feminine. It looked
Hmm.
like butter would melt in her mouth.
Yeah.
She had a huge heart, and she loved a dirty joke,
Hmm.
like reveled in it. And so she would wait till everyone was around, and then she would tell this joke, and it would just was so much funnier coming from her because it was
Yeah.
so unexpected.
Mm.
Um, and these are the things that I remember. Like I remember those years. Sure, there was times where watching someone that you love suffer
Yeah.
is hard,
Mm.
you know, and feeling like I want to be able to do something is
Yeah.
hard. And the approach I took was that I did focus on, okay, what can I do? I can keep her comfortable.
Mm.
I can distract her by bringing up old memories, good ones,
Mm.
things that we did. Um, Making sure that she knew that I was okay.
Yeah.
I remember one day
I think
coming
that's such
in.
a big point, isn't it? Like in particular, because you guys were so close, not just in age, but like, you know, you feel more like when you talked about talking your mom through the options for her treatment in the first place, in the first round, it to me felt more like as if mother-daughter relationship almost reversed, but more maybe even more like sisters, come on, let's do this together. You can feel that closeness that you had with your mom when you talk about it that way. So I can only imagine,
Yeah, well, we're
going
we're
through
very
that.
we're a very close family. We're a very loving family. I'm so blessed
Mm.
to have that.
Yeah.
Um, but that I remember this one day coming in and mum looking at me and, and in French because my mum, I'm French, her parents are French, and she
Hmm.
says, "Ma fille, est-ce que tu te regardes après toi? Are you looking after yourself?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, yes, I'm looking after myself, which I really wasn't. Like I was
Mm-hmm.
not doing self-care
Yeah.
at all. And I walked away that day thinking, these are like, she might be here for only a couple more weeks. I don't want
Yeah.
her worrying about me.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want her to have those last few weeks worried about any of us. And
Mm.
so I started to self care, and that was the sharing that I had with her. I'd come and
Lovely.
I'd say, I meditated. I went down to the beach this morning.
Mm-hmm.
I did this, and you could see her picking up like this.
Mm.
There was this load that was off her
Yeah.
shoulders.
Yeah.
Um, and so as her body was her body was starting to give in
Mm.
to death.
Mm.
And it was just really about making her comfortable, and she was still able to talk and things. And the painkillers, as we're giving the painkillers, there's a little bit of hallucination.
Mm.
And I do remember on the morning of the day that she did transition, I just woke up thinking I need to go inside. So I was
Yeah.
staying at my mum and dad's house. They turned a garage into a flat,
Mm-hmm.
and so whoever was sort of helping dad out, that's where we'd stay, because
Mm.
my dad was, the primary carer, and he
Yeah.
needed a lot of assistance. So I used to take
Mm.
take the night shift, and dad would sort of take the morning shifts. And I got up and I went in to see mum, and she was sitting in bed. She had a little crooked finger, and she was going like this. She was telling somebody off. And my mum's French Greek, so she was moving in between Greek and French. And so
Mm-hmm.
I came in and had a look, and I said, "Who are you talking to, mum?" And she said, Constant, that was her dad. And so
Mm-hmm.
my mum had a terrible childhood. Her
Yeah.
father was very abusive, he was an alcoholic and very abusive. And she was telling him off. And I was like, good on you. You tell him. Like, does it feel better? I go, you better listen, Constant. And I
Love it.
think like it felt good for her to have that moment. I think and I was thinking about this when I was telling this to some of my friends. They're like, oh no. And I said, no, I think it was a good thing,
Mm.
because she was in her reality and she was feeling
Yeah.
very empowered.
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking, what a wonderful thing that she's gotten off her chest as she's ready
I
to
really love that. And
transition.
I also, yeah, I also just want to say, I am absolutely convinced, and I know there are people with more scientific background who talk about this is just chemicals, drugs, etc., etc. I'm absolutely convinced that people who are starting to transition in their phase of transitioning, going over, that definitely their loved ones, or maybe not so loved, I don't know, their people come in that they need to talk to, and there's often
Mm,
people, loved ones, waiting for them. And I remember quite vividly being there for Rob's dad when he transitioned, and he kept looking to the left up, and I could feel Rob's presence in the room. It was so apparent that he was there waiting for his dad, and he kept talking to him. And I said to him, Ottavio, is Rob waiting for you? And he said, yeah. And he looked up again, and I just knew, I just felt the connection. And to me, there was no hallucinating. He saw it, I felt it. And I just really feel I always want to honor everyone's different perspective and different spirituality, but I'm absolutely certain that she really saw him.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I agree. I think that there's so many things that we don't know.
Mm.
And just because we don't know doesn't mean it's not real. Like,
Absolutely. Yeah.
right? I mean, you think about it now, neuroscience is proving what
Mm.
spiritual leaders have been teaching for thousands of years.
It's amazing, isn't it?
And all of a sudden there's this discovery, and it's like, hang on a
Ooh,
minute,
yeah.
that's been going on for a
Oh, I
while.
love
So,
it.
yeah, so I think I agree with you. And my grandmother, both my mother and my grandmother died in the same room.
Wow.
Um, so my grandmother, who she passed transitioned at 53 from bowel
Hmm.
cancer. I
Wow.
was only 12 back then, and
Yeah.
she was talking to her mother.
Mm.
She was
Yeah.
having a chat with her mum who had passed. And
mm,
my grandmother actually said to us, they're coming for me now. I'm
yeah.
going. And she passed
Wow.
that, yeah, she passed that that evening.
That's
So
beautiful though.
yeah, so for me, there's some evidence there for me
Mm,
that there is a level of reality,
yeah.
you know, even if it look, even if it's a subconscious mind
Mm,
easing you into it,
mm.
that's okay too.
Yeah,
Like,
I don't
you know,
even think we need words for it. I think we can agree that there is something there. There's
yeah.
so many stories about that that I feel um, I'm actually really looking forward to experiencing that. Not that I want to die anytime soon. Please give me some more time. But I'm really I feel for me one thing that happened when Rob passed away, when my husband died, was that I lost my fear of dying. And not so much so that I thought, oh, I want to be with him. I want to die. Not at all. It is not my time yet. I can feel that. I
Mm,
don't know when my time will be, but I don't feel it's going to be anytime soon. I don't know. Yet for me, there was this, I would worry about our children, how they would cope losing their second parent. That was my biggest fear. Not so much me dying, but how they would cope. And the older they get, and the more we can talk about it from a sort of more and more adult perspective, the less that fear is prominent in my life. So I've worked a lot on that with them, around them, behind the scenes. But I
yeah.
think it is just beautiful. The more we can share stories like you and I are just doing right now,
Mm.
the less there is fear around that topic. I find it so, so important to
Oh,
be able to talk about it and share these stories. So I'm going to bring it back to you.
oh no, well, 100%. I so agree with you. We are so bad at talking and having an open
Mm,
discussion about death.
yeah.
We really are. And I remember with the palliative care nurses that would come in and they were saying, "You're doing an amazing job." And I went, "Oh, thanks." And she said, "No, no, you really are." She said, "If other families could like learn from what you're doing." And I said, "What are they doing what are they
Yeah.
not doing that I'm
Yeah.
doing?" And she said to me, she said, "Well, one of the things is that you're not begging your mother to stay."
So big. So
Right.
big. Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. Oh,
And I
yeah.
was like, right, goosebumps. And I thought I had tears and I said, why would I want her to continue to suffer?
Mm,
Like
yeah.
asking her to hang on is not a
Mm,
cure.
mm,
Like asking her to hang on is asking her to suffer, you
mm.
know? And I
Yeah.
wanted her to transition, getting emotional, because I wanted her to
It's okay.
transition peacefully,
Mm,
you know,
yeah.
really feel like it's okay. I can leave and they're all okay. Everyone's okay. You know, when you were saying I worry about my boys losing two
Yeah.
parents, my mum was, I'm clearly concerned about how my dad was going to be,
Yeah.
how we were going to be, and with the discussion I had with my sister, and she really embraced that, and
Mm,
she and my brother, we all did, of coming in and not talking about the illness, but talking about our day and the sunshine and all old memories and
yeah. I love
creating
that.
new memories. That
Mm,
was really important. And so yes, the palliative, and I thought, oh my goodness, there's all these people out there clinging on to life, not because they want to cling on to it,
yeah.
but because their family members are begging them.
Yeah. And because they are not ready to go. And, I'm going to bring it back very shortly I mean, briefly, not shortly, to Rob's dad's passing, where his brother was in the room and he was cheering him on to keep fighting. And I literally took his daughter aside and said, please tell your dad to stop saying that.
Mm.
Otavio is ready to go. He needs to be allowed to go. That it's like you can do this, you can
Give them
come on. And
permission.
I'm like, no, he
Yeah,
was fighting so hard. He was
yeah,
holding on. And I know
yeah,
it was partially to his brother, but mostly because of his wife. You know, Rob's mom is 10 years younger, and I know that he worried about her. I know that he wanted to hang on for her. So it was really, really hard for him to
Yeah.
let go. And I think what you did for your mom, that is amazing. There's so
Thank
much
you.
love there. So much
Well,
love to be able to do that.
everything did come. Yeah, everything did come. You know, Marie, 100% confession. I don't know if I've told many people this, but there were days
Mm.
where watching her suffer was the hardest thing to watch.
Yeah,
And I would go and walk along the beach just to try and reset myself so that
yeah,
when I got to mum, I could let my grief go. So
yeah,
please, everyone who's listening, I am not advocating for you to suppress grief.
yeah. Thank
It's
you.
real,
Yeah.
feel it, acknowledge it, but
Mm.
allow it to pass through. And
Yeah,
I would go for walks on the beach and I'd be bawling my eyes out.
yeah, yeah,
And I'd be praying to whatever God is out there. I understand that it's her time to go.
yeah,
Let it be peaceful. Let it be
yeah,
painless. Let
yeah.
it not be like I don't understand the suffering part. Would be
Mm.
that was my
Yeah.
conversation with the
Mm.
universe was like, she's a good human, has done wonderful, beautiful things. Let
Mm.
her transition, let her go
Yeah.
without the
Peacefully.
pain. And then I'd come home, I'd see mum, we'd have a chat, and I don't know whether it was what I wanted to see, but she was in less pain.
Mm.
And she was a little bit more, had a bit more of a step in her voice. But that
Mm.
particular day, the day that she did transition, I called the palliative nurse, and they came, and I said, I think it's like soon, like
Yeah,
I feel it. I can't
yeah,
tell you why, but like her
mm.
breathing had changed, her
Yeah,
skin color had changed.
yeah,
Her ability to look at me and sort of stay focused had changed. And
mm.
so they came, they said, yeah, it's, and I said, should I bring the family? They said, yes. So I
Mm.
rang all my family. And so by 11 o'clock, everyone was at the house.
Mhm.
And we were just taking turns going in and just having a chat. And she's coming in and out of consciousness. And, but when I look back and I think about that day, there was so much laughter in the house. There was so
Fantastic.
much us talking about beautiful memories.
Mm.
There was such a connection with our family. There were brothers, sisters, their partners, the
Mhm.
grandchildren were there.
Mhm.
We were people cooking, eating, doing dishes together. There was
Mhm.
a lot of life in the
Yeah,
house. And
yeah,
I went in to see mum, and came back and said, Dad, I think you need to go. I think you need to go. And as much as it hurts all of us to
mhm.
have, our grandmother or mother leave, this
Yeah.
is my dad's partner of 51 years.
Wow.
51 years of, and they were so tight. They were so much in
Mhm.
love.
Mhm.
And I said, I think you need to go and sit with mum. And he did. He went and sat with her, and she was lying on her side, and he was holding her hand, and he was just talking to her. And I could see, like, he was so tired. Dad was so very tired.
Yeah,
And I went in and checked on him, and then I called everyone else in. I just
yeah.
had this feeling, and I rang my boys. So all the
I just
grandchildren were
wanted
there.
to say there was a beautiful story when you rang and you
Yeah,
just got through it
except for
perfect.
my
I love
two,
it.
who I had, my which is a whole other story, but had them quite late in life. Um, and I rang them and I said, I'm at Meme's house, and we're all together here with Meme. And, you know, I thought you might want to say good night. Say good night to Meme. And Mum hadn't spoken all day.
Yeah,
There'd been no conversation. She'd come in and out, and there'd be a bit of a murmur, but there's no talking. So I put them on loudspeaker, and they went, "Good night, Meme. We love you." And she went, "I love you." And then just went like she blew out a candle.
yeah,
and she was gone. These tears are not tears of grief. This is tears of,
You don't even need to explain. Love,
it's just,
gratitude,
it was
joy.
such an
Yeah,
honor to be
yeah,
able to help her transition so peacefully, so
yeah,
whole. And it was beautiful. It was beautiful
yeah.
for all of us. I afterwards went into the laundry, sat on the laundry floor and burst into tears.
Mm,
Um, because of the finality of it all.
yeah.
Um, my sister-in-law came in and asked me if I wanted to come and clean Mum's body, and I said no, I don't need that because I did and felt I did and said everything that needed to be said.
Yeah.
But that was very cathartic for my sister-in-law, who was very close to
Mm,
my mum, and my
yeah.
sister, to clean her body and put her in some nice clean um,
Mm,
nightgown. Mum wanted to be buried in her nightgown. She didn't want
mm,
to be dressed up. She didn't
yeah.
want, she didn't want jewelry. She didn't want makeup. She was happy to be put in a cardboard box, she said.
Hmm.
Like she just didn't want those frills.
Yeah.
Um, so there was a great honor
Mm,
in honoring her.
yeah.
And then the honor afterwards, which we
Yeah.
spoke of as a family,
Mm,
was the way that we could honor mum in the highest level was to live a very full
yeah.
and loving life.
I
And
know. Yeah. Sorry.
no,
Thank you.
I was just going to say to embrace
Yeah.
life.
Mm,
She's the matriarch of our family.
yeah.
So it was about, now that she was gone, we now needed to make sure that we continued meeting up with as family. And
Mm,
I make the tabbouleh salad, which was mum's signature dish.
yeah.
The gauntlet's been passed to me now, and I make
Mm,
like we're going to get together at Sunday for Easter. And if I didn't bring up the tabbouleh salad, everyone would go, "Where's
yeah.
the tabbouleh salad?" And perhaps bringing the tabbouleh salad is like having mum there,
Yeah, I love that. I
and
love this so much. And I just need to, because we're actually over time already.
ah,
However, there's
okay,
one thing. No, 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 I love this. I did not want to interrupt you, but now I just want to bring you to one more thing that I know that you and I are on this level where we can actually talk about this. And I want to just bring this in very, very briefly because it's one thing that not many people touch on. And there is this, when you said you had this moment of collapsing on the laundry floor and
mm,
crying, there's also a particular deep sense of relief that happens that not many people want to talk about because they feel shame about it or it's not right. I'm not allowed to feel relieved. Yet it is this, I'm so glad that she's not suffering anymore,
I agree
you
with you.
know? And
Yeah,
I think this is really, really important. And I know, as I said, we're over time, but can you just quickly touch on that and share a little bit about that? Because I feel people need to be allowed to feel that because there's no shame around that.
yeah,
There's nothing bad around that or dishonoring.
yeah. No, absolutely. There was a absolute thank you. I pretty much verbalized that out loud.
Yeah,
Of like there was an incredible relief. Like I said, that I honored her,
yeah,
but that she had transitioned so peacefully and it was no longer in suffering. That it
yeah,
was done, and I'm going to say that there was no longer suffering for my dad. He had
mm,
a new grief to deal with.
yeah,
That he
yeah,
no longer had the suffering of
yeah,
watching the woman that he loved
yeah,
deteriorating,
yeah.
which is, there were years of his
Big,
life.
yeah,
And my dad, we all believed my dad was going to, like, he would go within a year of mum
mm.
dying. He's just recently had his 85th birthday. It's been 10
Woohoo!
years.
Happy
Life
birthday to
hasn't
you,
been
Dad.
easy. Like,
It's
there's
amazing.
definitely,
Of course, 51
with
years of
age
marriage.
and ailment, and
Yeah,
he's often very lonely.
yeah.
But he, in honoring mum, he did continue to live. And,
Mm, beautiful. Love that. I
so
love
that's
that
really
so
important.
much. Yeah,
Mm,
in honoring mom, he did continue to live. I think that's what life is all about, you know,
I
to
agree.
honor the person that we loved by continuing our life. And you know, this is very much aligned with my message.
Yeah.
So, to finish this off, Linda, where and how can people reach you, and how can you support them in the way that you work with people?
Yeah, okay. So I don't have a website. I've been coaching for 10 years. I don't
Who cares?
advertise.
We
It's
just
all
want to
from
know
word
how
of
we
mouth.
reach you.
So yeah, go onto social media. You can find
Hmm.
me. I have a page called A Daily Dose of Linda.
Hmm.
It's just a little bit of fun. You can find me
On
on
Facebook,
LinkedIn.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, Facebook,
Hmm.
and LinkedIn. Sorry, LinkedIn um, is Linda
Insta.
Pierson, and on
Yeah, yeah.
Instagram, it's A Daily Dose of Linda. You can contact me there.
Perfect.
Yeah.
We'll be sharing the links in the show notes anyway, so you don't need to write this down. You can just click on the links. And for anybody who loved what we shared about today, if you have somebody going through something very similar and you think they need to hear that, please go and share this podcast, because all you do is share the love, share some hope, share some support. And if you love what you hear, please subscribe for our weekly sessions here on Unsilence Grief. Linda, I cannot thank you enough for being here
No,
today. I
thank you.
really love that you opened your heart to us, and sending you a big hug. This is Linda
Yeah.
and Marie signing off.